today on the Fandom Outpost.
Holy crap, you just found a lost Charlie Chaplin film.
Me with all sugar.
We saved.
Westland for life. Disclaimer for those who don't know what Columbo is, this podcast is not for you.
Yeah.
Until we got knocked off by the Jesus biography.
I won't know how to deal with the client asking for changes and revisions.
There are people who are watching this now screaming at me, you idiot.
Welcome to the Fandom Outpost, your podcast for all things pop culture.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us, whether it's your first time or return time. We appreciate you stopping by to give us a listen if you follow us on our podcast, or look if you watch us on YouTube. It is Saturday, June
17th.
17th. And as always, I am Mark.
I'm Bob.
Seriously?
Right out the gate. I thought we were going this way.
Oh my God, right out the gate.
All right, go ahead. You're who?
I am Mark.
I'm Bob.
I'm Jim.
And welcome to the Fandom Outpost. We have a special episode today. We're not going to really call it one of our numbered episodes, even though Bob wanted to, because we have a special guest today. And the theme of today's episode is something very near and dear to all three of us growing up at a certain age, and that is the Three Stooges. So, and I really would be embarrassed if I had to explain who the Three Stooges were. So I'm not going to do that because that means you shouldn't be listening to this podcast. So we're going to turn it over to Bob and kick it off, and let's see where this goes.
Yep, we're excited today to have a special guest, an old friend of mine from high school, the high school days, and his name is Paul Gierucki, and he's a Detroit native. He's a motion picture producer, director, writer, film historian, preservationist. Anything else, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, Dan, triathlete, what do you want to throw in there?
Underwater basket weaver.
Yeah, jack of all trades. You've had a lot of work shown on different cable channels and media outlets. You're the president of Smith Entertainment, and you have a new Blu-ray coming out that we're also excited to talk about. You've done a DVD before, previously, about the Three Stooges that we'd also like to talk about. But I guess, first of all, we'll talk about you.
Yeah. Introduce yourself, Paul.
Kind of introduce yourself and give us like a little insight from the beginning, like a little bit from the beginning, like as a young toddler there watching TV or whatever.
Well,
how you came to be who you are.
I don't do a lot of interviews. I'm just one of those people. I like my work to speak for itself. But you guys are hometown guys. You're from my neck of the woods. I grew up in Garden City, Michigan, and you're
Westland for life. Name Westland.
2 against 2.
Spent a lot of time in both, boys. So,
there you go.
I mean, I was born in Dearborn, and we lived right down on Anthony Street over near Schaefer. So if you know the area, when I was a kid, about 4 years old, the city park used to have film festivals at nights on the weekend in the little park that was right by our house. And one night my dad woke me up, got me into my pajamas, grabbed blankets and a bag of popcorn, and we walked down the street, sat down, and watched on the projector 16 millimeter movies of Popeye, Bugs Bunny, Three Stooges, Laurel and Hardy, and it's one of my earliest memories. I can remember just sitting there looking up and seeing the projector and being so utterly fascinated by it. It's like, wow, that's cool. Whatever that is, I want it. I want to do something with that.
Nice.
And literally from right out of the chute, I think film and television movies are the only thing I've ever really been interested in. And kind of built my life around that.
I'm curious because it's in this day and age, I guess Detroit is known as a long reach for movies. Although I guess they killed the tax initiative so that they don't come here anymore,
Nope.
or Hollywood doesn't come here. But did you find any stimulus here in Detroit, or did you have to do what everybody does and make your way elsewhere or do something elsewhere? What lured you out, or did you stay here?
We stayed here. I mean, we travel all over the world to do what we do.
Right.
Travel around, find the last surviving prints of any given film, put them all back together, restore them to the way they originally looked. We specialize in stuff from the earliest silent days all the way through about the 1970s. And but all of the work, I would say 95% of it was done here in Detroit. Southfield, we worked at the Grace and Wild Studios, which is gone now, and Cinetique and Kinetic, and used local talent, local everything. I always said there is as much talent here as there is in Hollywood, and there's none of the nonsense. It's normal people who work a normal job who really appreciate doing this kind of work. Bob understands. I mean, that's his background. He's been working in this industry for decades.
Damn.
Yeah. It was really cool to work on your Stooges documentary back in, what was it, 2004, something around there?
Yeah. Well, we did the documentary originally we shot it in 92, 93, and it aired as part of A&E's biography series in 1994 in December. And it became the most watched, highest rated entry in the series until we got knocked off by the Jesus biography. And I thought that's kind of appropriate. That's
you
fine.
had to go down swinging. Yeah.
No shame there.
Then in 2004, the rights were given back to us, and that's when we did that set that you actually see on your table there, the DVD version. We expanded it to 63 minutes and put it out. And I can't remember, what did you were working on the graphics for that, didn't you?
I did some graphics. I did a lot of the intro of the character for each Stooge, like the little intros and things.
I love that opening. It's just, it's so perfect. And you had a 100% free hand in doing that. So that was really just a great bit of work.
Yeah. When you work with a lot of commercial work, it's nice to get these kind of like an independent type project where you could kind of do what you want, and see how it flies. Those are always the most fun. And I still remember to this day, that was a really fun project, and working with you is always great. And
seriously, it's Detroiters. It's the people in this area. I trust all the artists that I work with. You give people just a general direction of what you need done, point them and go. And you will invariably be pleased with what you get back. They'll give it a twist that you maybe necessarily didn't think of.
It was a root beer. We have, so Jim brought this Three Stooges root beer that we've been drinking. So you're gonna have to forgive us.
Yeah,
It's got a little bit of a.
it's starting to kick in.
If it suddenly kicks in and there's a bounce of laughter, I'm trying not to drink it, but it is good. It's very good. Me with all sugar.
We saved it for a special occasion.
They did Three Stooges beer. Back in '98, they had Three Stooges beer. It's actually surprisingly good.
Yeah, that's what this is. So.
Oh, yeah. Great shirt.
Got showing off the beer shirt.
So I was faced with all that big dilemma. So I got a case of it. I think it was sold in 4s at the time because they weren't they weren't going to mass produce it like a Bud Light or something. But the problem is it stayed on the shelf for a while because I liked it as a collectible. The bottles look good. The packaging and all that looked good. And then, of course, I probably waited too long to say, well, if I'm going to have it, I should at least try one. And then by the time I got around to trying it, it was not very good anymore. So I couldn't, people were like, oh man, what does it taste like? I'm like, I I can't tell because it's past an expiration date. It didn't taste good anymore.
Oh, they brewed it in the bathtub. It tastes like that.
Yeah, it tastes like they brewed
We
it in
all
the
put
bathtub.
in the yeast.
And I never got any since then. I don't know. I mean, I've never seen any out there. There used to be specialty shops. You guys had one here in Southfield. There was a collectible shop in the mall out there. Southland. Sorry, not Southfield. Southland and Southfield? Is that right?
Southland is different than Southfield.
Well, it's
Yeah.
the Southland
Probably
Mall.
Southland.
Yeah. So there used to be a collectible shop in there, and you'd find some oddball things like the bottles of that, but like they wouldn't have a lot. But I've never seen any since.
So, Paul, I wanted to ask you. I know you have done work on different artists, different comedians like Fatty Arbuckle, Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton. What kind of got you involved and interested in those characters from the silent days and early days?
That's a really good question. My mom always says that as a kid, the only thing that I was ever really interested in was cartoons and comedies. Okay, so all the kids after school, they'd come rushing home to go play football or baseball. I ran home so I could watch Popeye, Three Stooges, Little Rascals. It was just a different interest level. I'd like to say I chose this industry, but it actually kind of chose me. My actual background is musical theater, performing, improv, everything comedy related. So my whole life has been comedy. That's all I've ever really done. And in 1990, that'd be 91 or 92, I had been writing with the thought of doing a Three Stooges biography, right, to do an actual film. I went to broadcasting school. I went to Specs Howard. As did you not?
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
I say shout out for Bob. Nice.
87. Yeah.
Nice.
And as soon as I got out, I connected with Billy Hunt and Jerry Taylor, who are both Garden City residents, old friends of mine. We were all working in the industry. I was doing improv at the Magic Bag Theater, and Bill said, I'm working at Pass, which was the sports channel over at Domino's Farms, and Jerry was working at a company called KDN Video Works. And we just decided to pool our resources and see if we could maybe do this documentary that I'd been working on for years. So we sat down, fleshed it all out. I called my contacts. I became friends with Lila Fine, going to the Three Stooges conventions, Larry's sister. And she was very encouraging, telling us to do it. Mo's daughter did not want us to do it at the time because she was thinking about doing her own documentary. We got the idea to get in touch with A&E, and Bill contacted them and said, hey, we've got this documentary we're working on the Three Stooges. They said, we'll take it. Apparently, they had been trying to do it themselves for years, but they couldn't navigate all the legal problems.
I just wanted to ask you, how it hadn't been done for so many years. I mean, they stopped making films, in the late 60s or so? Or
69, 70. Kook's Tour was the last thing that they did. It was a television pilot that never sold. And it was kind of a comedy travelogue where they were just old guys, hair slicked back, not in costumes, but their wacky adventures going on a road trip across the country.
Interesting.
But ultimately, we did that documentary. It went to A&E, and our next project was going to be Fatty Arbuckle documentary. Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle, film historian, was accused of killing a woman, of a thing of which he was innocent. And when we started to work on that project, I recognized that there were very few film clips available. There just wasn't much that survived. So I said to Bill, why don't we try and find some of these other films? We can restore them ourselves, and then we'll put them together for the documentary. Well, we did the restorations, and that became the I think it's a 4 DVD collection, the Forgotten Films of Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle, and it went nuts. I mean, people went crazy for it. We sold something like 100,000 copies of it, which was kind of shocking for that time.
Yeah.
And so we just continued doing more restorations. It was a natural progression. And I never really got back to doing the documentaries and just continued on in film restoration.
That's pretty cool. I'm curious, you had on your bio about the Charlie Chaplin bit. That sounded really interesting because it sounded like it was before he was really well known, or
Well, this is such a crazy thing. You guys remember the Gibraltar Trade Center?
Yeah.
I was at an antique show at Gibraltar Trade Center, and they had a little space set up, and I walked through, and I didn't find anything I was interested in. I collect comedy memorabilia, which we can come back to that later. But I was walking through, didn't see anything, and I was starting to head toward the exit, and for whatever reason, I can't explain, I just looked to my left and I saw a steamer trunk. Really cool wooden steamer trunk. Not something that I collect or I'm particularly interested in, but I stopped dead in my tracks, turned, walked over, flipped open the top, and it was full of film.
oh my God! Now come on.
I'm like, wow, what the hell? So I sat down on the floor and I went through all of the film that was in the chest. I pulled out a bunch of pieces. I haggled with the guy, paid him X amount of dollars, brought the stuff home, put it on a shelf, and promptly forgot about it. I was going to go back and clean them up later. One of the things that was in there I recognized was an early Mack Sennett comedy. And I said, okay, well, this is cool, interesting thing. About 6 months later, on a website, looking at my friend Brett Walker had done some research about missing early films, and one of them was a Charlie Chaplin film called Her Friend the Bandit, which was retitled, oh man, see, I hate it when this happens. It was retitled A Thief Catcher.
There you go.
And bell went off. I said, wait a minute, that's the film that I bought at Gibraltar Trade Center.
Oh my God.
Wow.
So at 3 o'clock in the morning, I go into my archive, pull the film out, get my little Elmo 16 millimeter projector, set it up, projecting on the wall about this big, and watching it going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, this has got to be a lost Chaplin film. And I'm watching it, and very clearly, it's not the film Her Friend the Bandit. It was another film that happened to have a similar title. I said, well, okay, a little disappointing, but cool, because it's something that is otherwise not available, a Ford Sterling comedy. But as I'm watching, about midpoint through, little guy comes waddling around the corner in a cop outfit right in front of the barn, and I stopped the projector and said, wow, that looks like Chaplin in a Keystone Cop outfit. So I backed it up, watched it again, backed it up, watched it again, backed it up, watched it again. So I stopped and I had to get up and look. I'm like, that is Chaplin, I'm sure of it, but I don't remember him being in a film. So I checked my reference books. I looked online and digging around, and there is nothing. I'm like, okay, all right, this is way too important to let go, but it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Who the hell am I going to call? So I sent out an email to my little group of friends where informally called ourselves the Silent Comedy Mafia. Long story behind that. There's an actual website that's kind of our hangout. We talk about classic film stuff, whatever. And my friend Richard Roberts, who is a night owl, same thing as me, immediately shot back. Looks like him. We got to see him move. So I shot some video of it, sent it to him. Yeah. He's like, holy crap, you just found a lost Charlie Chaplin film.
That's crazy.
Wow. That's amazing.
Wow.
It exploded from there. I mean, we did more research. I did some more background checking, got the background information on the film. And sure enough, and the minute that it hit the media, it went insane. My phone rang off the hook for 10 plus days straight, round the clock. I did interviews, and it's weird because if you look online, you can see interviews of me speaking in Japanese and Dutch and Italian. It's all dubbed in multiple languages. Made headlines all around the world. Such a crazy, weird set of circumstances that just fate. 100% bit of fate.
Nice.
That's really
awesome, dude.
that's a great story.
Yeah.
Very lucky is what I say.
Yeah. Well,
We've found a lot of other lost films over the years, bits and pieces, but that was special. That was really cool.
that's pretty awesome.
What was the end result of all that? Meaning, did anybody it's really weird. I'm getting this Indiana Jones vibe of you diving into all these old places, finding lost films and stuff. So whatever came of all that, did anybody take it off your hands? Did you have to restore it yourself? I mean, what happened to all that?
I can dispel a couple of myths here.
All right.
Everyone seems to think that when you find a lost film, you're suddenly a multi-bajillionaire.
Right.
$1 million. Folks, it's not. It's really cool. You can get a few free dinners out of the deal. But,
Nice.
realistically, I was trying to figure out what to do with it. And I said, well, I've got to preserve it. That's number one. We've got to make sure that it's copied because it doesn't exist anywhere else. So that was the first order of business. And then my friend, late David Shepard, who was a really well-known film preservationist, was releasing a Charlie Chaplin DVD set at the time. And he said, look, I've got to have this. I've got to have this for this collection. And I said, wow, David, I was going to restore it and put it out as part of the 100 Max Sennett comedies that we're restoring. And he said, okay, tell you what if we use the first couple of minutes of the film and then we use it as an advertisement to sell your DVD set? I said, done. So we let him use the first few minutes, and it stops at the clip of Chaplin, and it says, for the rest of the film, go see this DVD.
Nice.
So I restored it myself, and it's out as part of the Max Sennett collection, Volume 1.
Damn. I would think your anxiety over the discovery itself, of being like, oh my God, what do I do with this? If the wrong air gets to it, if, you're looking at it and the projector, and did I hear you right? Did you say Elmo projector? One day?
16mm Elmo, yeah.
Yeah, like you don't just want to run that through any projector, I mean, you don't want to burn up or, oh my God, I can't imagine what, I wouldn't want to touch. I'd just
on the white gloves or something.
That's it.
I get a lot of the Indiana Jones reference, but I usually say I'm more like Columbo. Just one more thing.
Yeah.
That's good.
Disclaimer for those who don't know what Columbo is: this podcast is not for you.
Well, I mean, I'm not a terribly serious guy, obviously. Comedy is my thing, but I take this work deadly seriously. Over the years, I've managed to find some of the most rare, ridiculous treasures, and again, we'll get back to that. But I take the responsibility very seriously. My job is to find the material, make sure that it's preserved, make sure that the original materials go into some safe place where it's going to be protected for the future, and then find ways to make it available to the rest of the world. That's my mission. That's what I do. So I go out of my way and I reference all of the film archives and all of the experts, and I consult with all of these different people all around the world, and we work together to make sure that these things are properly preserved.
Damn, that is awesome.
There seems to be a lot nowadays with like the advent of 4K discs and things. A lot more the spotlight's been on preservation and putting, cleaning up a lot of the older movies that are bound to disintegrate or whatever. I recently picked up like a Casablanca 4K that looks like it was shot yesterday. Some of these things are just amazing to see. How do you feel about that? It's got to probably bring joy that's kind of a thing now, more in the public than it was before, I would think.
It is genuinely satisfying to see where technology is going that can help us do this job. When we did the Arbuckle set, which was 2005, We released, I think it was like 30 Arbuckle films. There were no restoration tools at that point. We had to use old tricks in doing the Telecity transfers and recreate things and do it all in a very analog-y, low-end digital sort of way. Right. Whereas today, there's AI. AI helps in all of this stuff. It's as terrifying as the prospect of our robot overlords taking over.
Right.
It has some remarkable applications for things where it can, say you've got missing audio or you've got a section of audio that's missing from a film. If you know what's there, you can actually get close to recreating what was originally there. You can do missing pieces of footage. You can bridge gaps in things. And it's super intuitive and really, really fascinating to see where the science is going. And in the future, I'm sure I'll become obsolete and the machines will be able to do it all. We're not quite there yet, but it's
as long as there's clients out there, you're always going to have a job, Paul. So
I hope.
The AI won't know how to deal with a client asking for changes and revisions. You know how that goes.
That's true.
I'm afraid I do.
I do not compute.
Oh my God. That was awesome.
It's going to be something like that, you know.
Oh my God.
Well,
I got a question for you. So like Jim and I over here, we always, like all three of us actually, but this is around the same time we first met Bob. You know, we aspired to be filmmakers and stuff. And on our end of the town, Wayne Westland, number one, rules. On our end of the town, we went to a place called the William D. Ford Vocational Center because there was a guy there. His name was John Prusak.
Right.
And he headed up the, I guess, I wouldn't call it a film division, but
media productions.
Yeah, media productions and stuff. So, and apparently, he just passed away in March, I think.
Yeah.
So Mr. Prusak did. And a lot of people came out of the woodwork to praise him. A lot of names that I didn't know actually went through that program that are actually really famous now. But we always just had the passion for film and stuff. And I could clearly hear it in your voice when you're talking and stuff. But like, what do people do now? The advent of, like Bob said, with so much technology, to do stuff to try to, obviously you could get into film, but you're a very unique individual, restorations or things like that. I can't imagine how somebody would, unless they have a real strong passion for it, like yourself, how to get into something like you do. Like, how does one do that? How do you go about that?
I'm an autodidact. So I taught myself to do everything that I do. I mean, I went to broadcasting school,
right,
but that's not part of the curriculum in any fashion.
Right.
However, there are schools. There are in Rochester, New York, there's the George Eastman House, and you can go to these different archives and you can learn to do this particular thing. But it does take a special kind of mentality, a special kind of person, a different kind of person, to really to have the drive and the desire to do something that is so difficult, so competitive, because there's only a handful of people who are really doing this worldwide now, and it's not a terribly well-funded industry. You would think that Hollywood would be getting in line to make sure that all of their stuff was preserved and backed up. The studios would be backing and funding. And the only ones that I know of currently that have an active restoration program, Paramount Pictures is doing a lot of work. And Warner Brothers has actually done a great job, Warner Archive, by making their older stuff available. But a lot of stuff from a lot of different studios simply is not available. You could go anywhere, your phone, your laptop, your tablet, your anything, and watch almost anything you want, but there's not a proliferation of classic films.
Right. Yeah.
And you would think, to my mindset, wouldn't you take those assets and just put them out there? It's passive income for the studios. People find them, stumble across it. But I think ultimately maybe the mentality is they don't want the competition with their new product. perhaps. I don't know what the logic is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense. But I mean, I have a daughter who's oh my god, 22, I think. Oh my god, that's embarrassing. So we were watching Stooges stuff, and I was I could see that she had an interest, but I believe it's because of her dad that she had this interest. So when I'd laugh at something that was so minute and not probably, it's not. I'm a comedian, stand-up comedian, telling a joke and stuff. The nuance of something like that. I could tell that she didn't get it that much, but I told her. I remember looking at her saying, this is sad. When I was watching this, I was like, this is sad because all this is going to be gone. Like, it'll live on in these DVDs or Blu-rays and stuff, but the people that appreciate it, we're all going to be gone. That younger generation, unless you can really find one and just hook, line, and sinker them in, like, I just don't think they're going to appreciate the stuff. Yeah.
Is the alternate end of this job is to get young people to see these films. That's the key to preservation, to keep them around. You get young people to watch them. Okay, all of us, we grew up in this area, so I guarantee that every single one of you sat down and watched comedy classics on Channel 50. Laurel and Hardy, Three Stooges. Come on.
Nice shout out.
And well, seriously, we've all got that shared experience. We all saw them all the time. Everyone made the time to watch them. Right. And so now I could reference Dudley Dickerson, This House Show Going Crazy, and you guys know exactly what I'm talking about.
That was actually said here about 3 hours ago. That quote came up. So, yeah.
Oh, my God.
See, but that is kind of missing from the modern viewing experience. Kids don't really watch a lot of television. They watch their phones. They look at TikTok. Yeah. And that is the back door to this. Taking clips. Yeah. We recently, just a few years ago, bought the Educational Pictures Comedy Library. So it's all the comedies they produced from 1929 to 1938. You have Bob Hope, Buster Keaton, you name it, every major comedian went through that studio. We now own the original negatives, the copy negatives, and all the stuff that survives from that archive. And one of the things that I want to do is make clips of the film available through TikTok and other social media places to get kids at least exposed to it.
Absolutely.
And maybe, like we did, go to the library and read about these people.
Right. I mean, I'm sorry, the what?
Honestly,
what's that word? Does that exist anymore?
I think it's called Google.
City Public Library. I wanted to know more about the Three Stooges, so I rode my bike to the library and I checked out Mo Howard and the Three Stooges, which is actually on the shelf behind you, Bob.
Great book.
And that led me to read other books, like the Leonard Maltin books, which exposed me to other comedians that I didn't know about. And then the silent stuff as well, which wasn't even on TV when I was a kid. Once in a great while, there'd be a little something that turned up, but...
Well, I don't mean to interrupt you, but we were extremely lucky. I mean, how many cities out there didn't have that afternoon show or the weekend horror, Sir Ghastly Graves or stuff like that?
Ghastly, yeah.
You saw that one with the ghoul, yeah. So, how many cities don't get that out there?
Well, the advent of cable killed the local TV market,
right?
Where they had to find programming.
Precisely. It was local programming all around the country, and the minute that they took over, it killed that local horror host. Although you've got Sven Gulli on cable, if you get to PTV, that's fun. Right. And they do a lot of the retro programming, but you have to be looking for it, and it's the exception rather than the rule.
Right.
It's so... Again, that thing that sparked all of us to have this lifelong passion and enjoyment of these things isn't there for kids now. But the job is to make sure that they do get exposed to it and see that, and hopefully will take it and run. Right. Parents, show this stuff to your kids. Sit down. They laugh. It's funny.
That's how we got exposed to it, through our parents, one way or the other.
One way or another, right.
Right. So
For
I've
sure.
done my best to drag my child to. Well, we've gone to the Redford Theater, which is a great,
Such a great venue.
great
Yep.
venue, and they have at least once or twice a year they have a Stooge Fest, and I've taken her to those, and she's enjoyed those. We seem to find our way to Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein every Halloween somewhere. Some place is playing it, right?
Just a phenomenal film.
Yeah.
You can't see it, but right there, I've got an original one sheet for Abbott and Costello.
Oh,
That's
nice.
fantastic.
Dude, that's like, I hate to say this. This is what I said. If I mention it in my house, I'm like, that's what is it? Universal Pictures, right?
Yeah.
That's Universal's Endgame. Like,
Right.
you know, like that's like, can you imagine at the time seeing all these guys together in that movie and stuff?
Right.
God, I love that as
And
a kid.
it's funny because most people think, oh, it's the thing that killed the Universal monsters. And I
Nonsense.
think retroactively, kids saw Frankenstein in that and were interested in who this character is.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Precisely.
We're
Precisely.
retro, so work backwards.
Well, anybody in our age group, even your Tom Savini's and all these guys that went on, and your Stan Winston's
Rick
and
Baker and
Rick
all those
Baker and
guys,
those guys, they always cite the Universal Monster stuff. I do not know how the Universal Monster genre is not bigger today than it's ever been. I mean, there's action figures and just things like that, but you don't see it a lot repeated, on TV if you were stuff like that, which I just can't imagine that it's not as big as it should be, citing that everybody loved these as a kid. And it's what propelled hundreds of thousands of people to see all the modern era of makeup and monsters and stuff like that. Because all those original guys, or all the newer guys, they all cite that. They always cite those movies, no matter what. That was it for them.
Well, like the Stooges, when they became a TV package, that's like the Universal Monsters. They came out in a package called Shock Theater in the 50s.
Yeah.
When television was looking for things to put on television.
Yeah.
And that's where the Stooges stepped in, right? Columbia,
Yep.
didn't they?
Yeah, the Screen Gems package.
Screen Gems.
Yeah.
Green Gems, that's right.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly short-sighted.
Jim's like, that's all I got.
Seems like it's all I got. Dead air.
I think it's short-sighted that they are not pushing the classic films harder and doing packages like that and making them available. I don't think it's a lack of interest on the part of people. I think there's just not a lot of motivation on the part of the people the current rights holders who have these things. It's ancient history to them. In the overseas, when you travel overseas, they have a much greater respect for their classic films like the Three Stooges and Laurel and Hardy and Buster Keaton. You'll still see bits of them on television. You'll see those things referenced constantly. There's a respect for the history. We are a very forward-looking society with not a lot of interest in our past. And although I have to say, I am seeing a shift. Documentaries were dead for quite a while. It was just very difficult to produce documentaries. Now there is a huge uptick in documentary production, and people are starting to get interested in our own history again. So maybe there is hope, for the future for long.
Yeah. My again with my daughter, HBO, which name drop there for a streaming service. They have a wealth of very good, very quality documentaries on almost anything you could think of, and I'll always go down their library just to see like, oh, what haven't I seen? Sometimes it'll be something that's so obscure that even I'm like, oh, maybe I recall that stuff, but I'll watch it and I'll just learn a million things about it stuff. So, and at least once a month they come out with a new one or a modern one or something like that. And for a while there, I know we were all talking about them because they were hitting home runs every month with these documentaries. They had one on the Bee Gees that was great. They did one on Tina Turner that was great. Yeah, so it's like I'm like they need to keep that stuff going just on any subject matter that will like be for anybody. Like I just love documentaries and stuff, and I'd like to see some of these. Oh, I know this speaks to Bob, and I'm kind of changing subjects here, but I want to see updates of these things too, the best quality that I can see. I was just talking to my daughter again about the Ted Healy era of Stooges, and there's not a lot of that out there that's real quality. Even some of the stills and stuff and clips from your documented and stuff I hadn't ever seen anywhere else. So I was very impressed that you're able to get a hold of that kind of stuff. But I want to see more of it, and I want to see good quality versions as well.
Yeah, I think that's critical. Well, actually, that kind of takes us right to the new project that we're releasing. It's called Stoogerama, The Men Behind the Mayhem, and Even More Mayhem. So it's 3 DVDs or 3 Blu-rays of 11 hours of material, 8 hours of which have never been available anywhere at all on home video.
Nice.
That's great.
This project came about by accident, really. I had recently partnered up with Kit Parker of Kit Parker Films and Sprocket Vault, just a legend in this field. It's such a thrill to be able to work with him on stuff. And we were talking on the phone. He's like, well, what do you feel like doing? What do you want to produce? He said, what do you have that you think would be of any interest we can put out? I said, well, the rights to the Three Stooges biography I've got. He said, wow, when was the last time that was out? I said, well, 2004. And now people are bootlegging it like crazy on YouTube. He's like, well, that's insane. Why don't you put that out again? And so I said, all right. Yeah, that'd be worth looking at. I'll go back and look at the masters and see. And like, maybe we could, I don't want to just redo the same thing over again. I'd like to build it up and make it something really interesting. So I got the idea to go through and find, this is, the best way to describe it is, this is my riff. You guys remember Good Times Home Video from the 1980s and 90s?
Yeah.
They used to put out those crazy cool VHS tapes of the festivals of like Marx Brothers and Three Stooges and Laurel and Hardy. There was all clips of really rare stuff. This is kind of my elevated riff on that, where it's not just clips. But I went out and found, I scoured the film community, called all of my friends, and everyone dug deep in their private collections to find this stuff that they had preserved. And it was literally everything from 8mm film to U-matic videotape to 1-inch videotape, these super archaic formats. So I spent a year trying to remaster all of this stuff for HD. However, this set almost didn't happen. When I got the original tapes for the Stooges documentary, now remember, we shot this back in 92 and 93. So that's like ultra SD, super low end. We had the tapes transferred to digital, and I watched it, and I literally was sick to my stomach because it looked so bad. I said, there is just no way that I am going to be able to do anything with this. It's terrible. This will not hold up to 2013 Super 8K, high def. And I literally walked away from the project. I said, I can't do this. I am not going to put this out. And I thought about it for a few days, and I said, wait a minute. I'm coming at this from the wrong way. You're a restorationist. You're a historian. Why don't you go back and just restore your own work? It just never occurred to me that I would ever in my life go back and restore my own work.
That's funny.
But that's what I wound up having to do. I locked myself in a room for about a week and experimented with all these the different equipment and all the new AI software and stuff, and finally was able to come up with a couple of processes that made it look like that interview footage was shot yesterday.
Nice.
The drawback to that, however, was that the film clips and the photographs looked terrible. So I'm like, okay, here we go. So let's just rebuild the bloody thing. I'll go HD across the board. I had accumulated so much more material since then, so I used better photographs and better clips and better things. So I upgraded all that. So the core of the documentary stayed the same, but the rest of it is all kind of new. So if you've seen the documentary before, it's got a nice, shiny new glint to it while maintaining that feel of the original.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think we were all talking about the documentary. We were able to check it out in the last week or so, and boy, watching that, it's just you realize how hard of a life the Stooges had. I mean, it really was like a hard life for all of them. It seemed like. What
That's
do you?
the life of a vaudeville performer, or the life of a two real short subject comedian. It's pretty rough and tumble. It's
Yeah, that's a lot. It sounded like a lot, right?
That's
well,
kind of
they
nice.
were all really interesting guys. I mean, the Stooges themselves. I found out so many different things about their personal lives. Like they used to do latch hook rugs in their spare time. Mo and Larry did ceramics. Curly loved dogs, and
Right.
Shep loved to go to the boxing matches. They're all regular, normal guys with a
Right.
really crazy job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did love it.
What was your experience talking with the family members on that during the, rounding up interviews for the original documentary? And what's kind of your
Looking back
recollections on them?
looking back on all of it, it was one of the coolest things that I've ever done. No joke. I mean, to sit and hang out with Curly's daughter, or sit and chit chat with Adam West. We shot the interviews in a hotel bedroom. You want to talk about the funniest, coolest guy? He was everything that you would imagine Adam West would be. He was constantly trying to break me up. First serious interview that I did, and he's just cracking jokes, and he knew exactly what I was trying to get, delivered like a straight up pro. After we did the interview, he's like, "Oh, it was a pleasure to meet all of you and work with you." And
Right.
he's like, "Can I do anything else for you?" And I said, "Well, we'd love to, have a couple of autographs if you don't mind." He's like, "Anything." So he needed something to write on, and my friend Jerry whips out his wallet to use this, and he's putting the photograph on top of the wallet and signing, and he takes Jerry's wallet and pockets it in his back pocket and heads for the door.
Nice.
Just, could not have been kinder if he tried. And he could obviously tell I was probably pretty nervous, because that was my first major interview with like a full on legit star, Adam West. But it was cool.
What's crazy? My daughter loves that part of the documentary. She kept referencing that, saying because of her age, she knows the Batman Adam West,
Yeah.
and then she knows the Family Guy caricature of Mayor West. But she didn't. She was like, "Wow, I don't think I've ever seen him as
Adam West.
as Adam West in a normal actor and stuff." She could not help. She kept talking about it and stuff, and I was like, "Wow!" Like she was really, fascinated by that she got to see that and some of his humor and stuff. And I started laughing at that because she was really analyzing all that and talking about him and like, wow, it's so cool and stuff. So thank you for that, for my daughter's sake.
What came across in that interview with him is his genuine warmth of the subject matter of working with. He really looked like he had very fond, warm memories of that and really enjoyed his time doing that.
What you saw was what you got. He was that warm, that genuine, and so funny. I had to cut out a couple of the earliest bits when he's talking about his earlier career. You have to stay focused on the topic.
Right.
But he was talking about working on a Western series where the horse has TB, just making ridiculous jokes. And
wow.
Really just a fun, interesting guy. And Larry's sister Lila I cherished her friendship. She was really a great lady who looked way too much like Larry. You could instantly tell that it was his sister. But all the behind the scenes stories, the family stuff, and we spent a lot of time together over the years. And she was just, her and her husband Nate, who was the Stooges Roadshow sound man. He did their special effects for their stage tours. So
nice.
Just great people who knew Mo, Larry, and Curly Joe better than anyone.
So the new Blu-ray you were saying has a lot of extra features and footage. Is there anything else on there that might perk our interest?
I am super excited by the material that's in here. It spans their entire career. I will make this promise. No matter how big of a Stooges fan you are, you will find something in this that you never dreamed existed or never saw before. No joke. There's a short subject. It's called Surprise Surprise. It's a 3-minute featurette with Moe, Larry, and Curly promoting the Pillsbury projector, which was this little toy theater thing they gave away in movie theaters. You put little flip cards in it, turn the crank, and it's movies of the Three Stooges. But there, it's them clowning around promoting this for the movie theater that they were actually doing the giveaway in. And it's hilarious. And there's outtakes from their very last film. There's home movies of them from the 1920s all the way to the 60s. There's color home movies of Curly goofing around on the set of the film sets.
Oh,
Excuse me. There's audio recordings from Moe and Larry, the very last things that they did in the 1970s at colleges where they did these Q&As, these huge groups of super fans when they were, just still so super popular. And they're joking and laughing and telling stories about what it was like to do this all their lives. It's literally 8 hours of stuff. There's interviews with them. There's behind the scenes kind of things. There's home movies. There's some little lost television program things. There's it's a lot.
Yeah.
It
Like you were very busy. That's awesome, dude. I can't wait for that.
When is it coming out? So July 11, is it?
I think they revised the date to July 10th.
Okay.
So it's hitting soon, but if you pre-order now through Amazon, I think it's like $40, where the list price is normally 60 something. So I think deepdiscount.com has it too, and it might be even a few dollars less. But my suggestion is buy the Blu-ray. If you choose between the Blu-ray and the DVD, the Blu-ray is just it's slightly better quality.
Right.
Now, remember that all of this stuff is decades old, preserved by collectors. So it's not always necessarily the greatest quality, but it's literally the only copy that survives. Larry doing television commercials for the book that he wrote. Larry on television doing commercials for the Three Stooges T-shirt. Things that you just never imagined would have survived are here in this collection. So it's a way for Stooges fans, no matter how diehard you are, to find something new to you.
Well, that's when I saw. I think you were talking about it on Facebook, and I saw that, and I'm sitting with my buddies here, and I'm like putting 2 and 2 together. I'm like, hey, wait, this is coming out. I can try to get a hold of Paul, see if we can talk to him, talk about all the stuff that we all enjoy and love, and then talk about your new release, which is like falls right into summer here. And we're all excited about it. And,
absolutely, man. I can't wait.
So instead of rushing home from school, you can rush home from work and watch the Three Stooges. It's going full circle.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. And just watch it at my leisure this time. I don't have to worry about missing that, 4:00 deadline or whatever. So I gotta ask you a personal question. So everybody in the history of Stooge fan has a favorite.
I was just going to say the same thing.
So,
I was thinking the same thing.
Everybody's got a favorite.
Don't give them the Sophie's choice.
This is the Sophie's choice, man. Got to put you on the spot. Do you got a favorite, Paul?
Hard to pick one. Okay, Microphonies. If I have to choose one, it's probably got to be Microphonies, where he's playing Senorita Cucaracha and they're in the broadcasting studio.
Well, we just had on. I don't even remember the name of it now. Again, what's it called?
I know, I forgot. It's like Who Goes There or something like that.
Yeah, it's the
one with the goon.
The goon, the one with the goon, and they're kind of running around, and they're trying to kill the old man to get his inheritance or something like that. And it's such slapsticky, bizarre humor that we find ourselves quoting it all the time. And even now, I just got a big cheese grin on me because I just watched it and hadn't seen it so long, and it's so funny.
The timing, and it was like they were right at the peak of, maybe a little bit past the peak, because Shemp came after Curly,
Yeah, it was a
obviously.
Shemp episode, so
Yeah, but
Love
they had it like it was just like clockwork, and
I
it's
think Bob.
impossible to pick a favorite. It just is. There's each of the Stooges did multiple shorts that are just brilliant.
Right.
Shep, Who Done It, where somebody sticks their hand in the drawer and Moe's kicking the drawer closed. It's
Oh
just
yeah, that was
absolutely
actually we just saw
brutal.
that, didn't we?
Yeah,
We
we
just
saw
saw
that,
that. Yeah. I got to admit, my favorite bit is, and maybe it's cliche because a lot of people like it, but I remember the first time seeing Curly doing the clam in the chowder at the table, and the way he
Yeah,
would spin around.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's a weird practical effect, but it's just funny to me to see him whip around like that and not lose his balance and then get the table and and go back to it. And every time I'm dying laughing, but that's got to be my favorite bit of all time. I can't get enough of seeing that. So
That gag, that entire bit, was actually done several years earlier in a Billy Bevan comedy. I can't remember
wow.
the top of my head, but it's worth checking out because Curly learned from the best. He borrowed from Hugh Herbert and Billy Bevan and all these other comedians that he admired when he was growing up. And he put his own spin on. I can honestly say there was no one else like Curly or Shemp. They're two of the most unique comedians that I've ever seen. And even when they did gags that were familiar, that had been done in other places, they put their own spin on it that just made it theirs. And it's suddenly, that gag is all Curly.
Yeah.
I love it.
Like you mentioned, that these guys kind of, because they come from a vaudeville background and everybody's kind of borrowing from everybody and all that. Do you know the origin of, because I know Abbott and Costello did it in one film as well. Do you know the origin of the Niagara Falls skit? Maybe where that came from?
Yeah, that is a straight up vaudeville routine that had been reworked multiple times in various fashions.
The Stooges presented it in a vaudeville format as they were practicing it for a show.
That bit was actually shot a couple years earlier for a different film. It didn't get used in the feature film, and they wrote that short subject around that clip.
Nice.
Because it was way too good to not use.
Oh my God. I am curious because it's like nowadays, say a feature motion picture, right? Say, if you're trying to build a franchise and stuff and it bombs and it only makes 200 million, then you don't go on. I almost feel like the Stooges took a chance at releasing Woman Haters as their first short or their first Columbia short, because it was all a song or a rhyme or,
rhyming dialogue. Such a unique thing. That was pretty gutsy move on Columbia's part.
It could have just tanked with everybody being like, what are you guys doing? And then we'd never have all that. It's very funny to me that they chose that, and very courageous, I guess, And when you go back and watch that, never revisit it again in, the 30 years after, like you never get that again. So you got to go back to that very beginning start to see that one and only time they do that. And I loved it. I love that they did that. But I wish
it's a novelty short for sure. It's so utterly different than anything else that they did. And I dig it because Larry's kind of playing it like the lead, the straight man, and he kills it. And Curly and Moe are just wild in the background, but what a fun short.
Oh my God, that's so much fun. I gotta admit though, Larry is my favorite Stooge. He always has been. He's the fall guy, the straight man, the brunt of a lot of stuff. I love that
holds it together. Yeah.
Like he's the guy that Moe's angry at Curly, but Larry spoke first, so Larry's gonna get the wop. You know what I mean? So just something about that I always love. And the fact that his hair is just wildly comedic to me. I've always loved every little bit that Larry has done.
You always got to watch him. And no matter what thing they're doing, if he's in the background, he's doing something.
He's doing something.
And it's often super funny, if you're not paying attention.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can have that focal point on
on the
on
business.
the business stuff of it. And then, yeah, that background, he's got to make sure that something's going on in that background. Everything. You know what I'm really sad about? I really wish that we would have more. There's a couple that, and I'd have to know the name of it. I apologize, I didn't do my half-assed research, but they're in prison breaking rocks, right? And they're breaking rocks over Curly's head. And so Mo, if you watch, and it ends really quickly, and sometimes Channel 50 used to edit that part out, but there would be Mo is trying to get a rock up on Curly's head, but it's real. And so Curly turns to him and he says, "Hey, what are you doing? I'm not an idiot. That's a real one." And everybody, they bust out laughing in the background, but it fades to black really quick. So I just wish I would have been able to see more of that, more of that little behind the scenes type of stuff. Because I don't know if that was planned or if Mo decided to just do that, But I wish we could see more of that. And knowing some of the stuff that they talked about, you said the sound guy told about the table that Mo fell down on and cracked his ribs. So when you go back, like he says, and watch an episode, you can see, oh my gosh, there it is. And he winces a little bit from the pain, but then they cut, obviously, to the new footage and stuff. So it's very interesting. More of this information we can get, which is why I'm looking forward so much to your new release on that. I want to be able to gain better insight into all the old stuff.
Absolutely.
So, because all we got is that. That's it. That's their archive. That's their legacy. We don't have a lot of the home movies or stuff like that in the background. Not like today's stars.
It's really, this set is really fun in that I have to cop that I have a tendency to build things to my own taste, and I just hope that other people like them as well. And what you like is precisely what I like. I want to know more about the behind the scenes stuff. It's like, okay, how did they get hurt? What happened here? Why did you do this but not that? And this collection provides a lot of that. Through all of these different interviews, you're getting information and details. Like there's a program called On the Go, which is included in its entirety, the whole interview with the Stooges. And they're talking about a lot of things that they don't normally discuss elsewhere. And they're sitting there with their families. And then they go through and they interview their families as well, asking what's it like to be Mo's daughter or whatever. It's why I called it The Men Behind the Mayhem and More Mayhem. It's because it's a lot more of their private lives. You see in their home movies how much they're just clowning around and doing this ridiculous stuff with their families and just being funny, normal people, barbecuing and swimming. And one of the other things that I neglected to mention that was in here is like the earliest known film footage of Mo and Shemp from 1929 sound outtake newsreel of them in Brooklyn at a swimming pool. Really interesting stuff that was eventually cut together for a newsreel, but there's the outtakes from that are there.
Wow.
And it's just them clowning around at a local pool.
Nice.
The more we talk, the more comes out. What's on this Blu-ray set? It sounds great.
To remember all the different bits.
I know.
And
It's 8 hours. Yeah, 8 hours. It's like a lot to remember. I'd have to go with Shemp. I've always loved Shemp. I don't know what it is, but I like Shemp and put him in some kind of spooky atmosphere. The scary ones are always the ones I like when there's ghosts or.
Yeah, we were just watching the Ghost Talks earlier. It's one of my favorites.
I love all the
anytime a bird gets in a paper mache skull and rides around with a sheep, I'm there for it all day.
Oh my God.
What do you guys think of Cuckoo on a Choo Choo, the one where they're doing the whole Marlon Brando kind of takeoff? Have you seen it recently?
No,
it's been a while.
It's been a long while. So we're just
which one? Okay. Who's in that one?
It's Mo, Larry, and Shemp. Your homework assignment is to go and find.
I got them all.
After we're done with this,
because Larry is playing the Marlon Brando character, and it is one of the most bizarre films you've ever seen. Where Shemp is, he keeps seeing this invisible bird, a canary, and you got to see it and let me know what you think of it because it's so bizarre.
That's funny, man. I'm sure I have forgotten more than I remember because when I was younger, I had them on all the time. So then it was just pattern after pattern after pattern. But then I found myself, I went through a period where even though I loved them, I didn't love them anymore. You know what I mean? Because I just was like, Stooges, Stooges, Stooges. And so,
Yeah,
yeah,
it happens.
even nowadays, I had a couple DVD sets that I was actually considering getting rid of, and then my wife was like, "Why would you get rid of that? Like, you love those dudes so much. Why would you get rid of those?" And I'm like, "I don't know," because like I just for years I had been so enamored by them and always watching them and watching clips and stuff that I was like, "All right, I can take a break." But she's like, "Well, taking a break doesn't mean you got to get rid of your stuff, you know." So, but now to me, it's all fresh. So now I don't think I've ever watched it as much as I watched it with my kids. I have a second daughter who has zero interest in them. She can't get the physicality. She can't get the slapstick, if you will, brutality of it. You know, because to some people, I can imagine it's quite horrifying. You know, to see these guys from 60 years ago, 70 years ago, beating the shit out of each other, and
Yeah,
just
but nobody gets hurt. That's the thing. It's all
know.
cartoon violence. That's
We had kids. There was a family 2 doors down from me. They weren't allowed to watch the Three Stooges
that's
because
the
How
thing.
the
tragic.
parents thought they'd rake a saw over each other's head or something like that.
We never did that when we were kids, right, Paul?
Oh,
Ah,
yeah.
nah. I'll tell you honestly that after I did the documentary, there was a lot of. It was very difficult towards the end of production. We had days where we were up against the deadline to get it finished in time for A&E's broadcast. So we literally spent 3 straight days in the studio. I would catnap for 5-10 minutes here and there. We were just shifting editors around the clock while I stayed there and was directing this thing to get it done in time. And after the documentary was done and finished, I was burnt out. I could not anymore. It had been such a huge part of my life for multiple years every day. I had to step away for a while. But after about 5 years, I went back and I was able to watch them again. And I'm like, there's the joy.
Comes back.
It comes back. The familiarity kind of, you burn out. You do. But when it comes back, just visit again a little later.
I mean, that's like with anything. Hopefully, like I loved the Stooges so much growing up. I mean, I waited till they came on, and I would record them on VHS tapes. You know, whatever was on, I would just hit record and I'd let it go through. I'd try to edit out the commercials, but it really didn't matter because I would just be able to get those. And it seemed to be a goal in my life once once time went on and I got checklists of all the episodes. You know, I'd be like, okay. And I got it down. I got all the curly ones finally recorded from just the comedy classics. Yeah, just from the broadcast. I got all the main Shemp ones, but I didn't get all his, and I couldn't get any of the other guys, Joe's and stuff. Yeah, but because they didn't play those a whole lot, you might catch one here and there and stuff. And for years it was an obsession trying to get those checklists done. Like to get all of them.
Same.
You know,
we lived in a different world.
Yeah.
I mean, when we were kids, there was no VHS. You couldn't record these things. You would have to catch them on television, or go to the Royal Oak Music Theater to catch the film festivals. It was a different world.
I think the way that we used to consume that media, when these things came on, they were special, and that made them beloved to us.
Right.
Where kids nowadays, everything's at your fingertips, and I can watch it anytime I want. And so that loses, like, The Wizard of Oz. It's on twice a year. It's on at Easter and Christmas time. Or the Ten Commandments is coming on every day.
Every April.
Made it an event for us. Yeah, so it was special. Now some of that luster is off because they have one button push instant access, and they watch it on their phone, which we would have killed for as kids. You know, television. You know,
you know what's crazy though? Like, my family are just beasts when it comes to TikTok. But the Three Stooges bits, and not the long build-up bits, but just the like. Bob did this. He was talking about this 1, 2, 3, 4 thing that Mo did to Larry or whatever.
He hits Larry four
He hits
times.
Larry like 4
It's
times.
such a good pattern of he just like boom, 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 boom.
And
Yeah,
Bob counted it off. It was really funny. I was watching the TV and Bob was behind me and he was counting off the hits.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, he's like 1, 2, 3, 4.
And it's the sound effects that make it funny.
It's like we were watching a sporting event or something like that. It was really funny. And I thought, how is somebody not taking the Stooges yet and putting them on TikTok somewhere? Because those little hits like that, they're beautiful for that short clip format, you know? And I'm an idiot when it comes to technology, so that's beyond me. But I know that things can go viral like 3 years after something comes out or something. You know, well, why not 70 years after that they're due for a renaissance? Let's do this.
A little insider information. My dear friend Andy Pagana and Brad Server, Curly G, who is Curly's youngest
I was
grandson.
telling these guys about him. Yes,
They have a YouTube channel, and now Andy is in charge of social media for Comedy 3, the company that owns the Three Stooges name and likeness.
Right.
They're doing a media blitz of this stuff: TikTok and podcast and YouTube and Facebook.
Nice.
They are building up this army of new Stooges fans. They're not just reissuing just Stooges stuff, but creating new content in the vein of the Three Stooges, and they are funny. I mean, there's some great stuff that they're doing, so clever, and promoting all 6 of the Stooges.
Oh,
and
nice.
you gotta love it, man. It's really clever. So if you can go to Curly G's YouTube channel, look up the Stooge Talk Live podcast. I just did this with them a couple weeks ago. That'll air later. Dig it, man. There's some fun stuff to see over there.
excellent.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, Jim was just bringing that up when he came over today.
Love it.
It's important. It is to jump and bring that technology, drag it into the 21st century here, and get the kids exposed.
The only thing that makes me sad, and I say it all the time, I'm always the gloomy Gus, as my wife would say. So we were watching these. I was watching with my daughter the other day, and I said sometimes when I'm watching them, I get very sad because they're such a unique set of comedians. I always invite the debate, whether it's the vaudevillian days or all these other people, but the Stooges, to me, they're so unique. There was nothing like them. There will never be nothing like them, because then it'll all be an imitator. Think about that in the grand scheme of your lifetime and your legacy. If you are the one thing that is truly unique, and they are truly unique in what they did.
Right.
Nobody can ever come in and do that, because again, it's either an homage or it's, you're just parodying the Stooges stuff. Right. But they were it. That's it. And now that it's gone, that's it. You can't get that again. And it's sad to say that you can take inspiration from it, but you really can't do it. You couldn't have a stand-up show that involves something like that. They'd be like, oh, that guy's just doing the Three Stooges.
Right.
Like you can't do that.
I know I mentioned a question about what would the Stooges do in modern day. I mean, it was just a kind of a product of their time, probably, you would think, right?
Well, they'd be in a nursing home because they would be really old.
It took me literally. It took me too literal.
But if they were still alive, they would be doing the exact same thing, but they'd be doing it on TikTok.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They embraced technology. They jumped from vaudeville to film.
Yeah,
They did radio. They did television. So you bet your boots they'd be doing the exact same thing, just in a different place.
Absolutely.
And you're 100% right. Easily the most unique comedy team of all time. There is no one else that did it as long as well as, and famously. I'd say out of all of the comedians, as much as I love Laurel and Hardy too, they're just so near and dear to my heart.
Oh, yeah.
They are still the most recognized, well-known comedy team, and their stuff plays to sold out film festivals, and it kills the kids like it did 60 years ago.
Absolutely.
There's a great video I ran across the other day on YouTube, and it was a reaction video.
Yeah.
And it was villagers. It's like, so possibly India or something, an older gentleman and two younger ones react to a Three Stooges skit. So they're watching the one where they're tailors and they're pressing the pants and and it's just really culturally very interesting to watch it. And they're laughing. I'll just get
It was wonderful. If you guys get a chance, check that out. He's 100% right. They're laughing, even though there's a cultural gap,
yes,
and there's a language gap to a degree. They thought it was hilarious. It really does.
That's what I said. I've said that to my family my whole life. They're disclaimer here, like maybe it's the physicality of what they did. There's a polite way of saying it. It's a PC way of saying it, but that translates very easily. I can watch a video from another country and somebody gets slapped. I don't even have to have the context of it. I'm either going to laugh or I'm not. Most of the time I'm probably going to laugh, because unfortunately slaps and stuff like that are funny to me because of what I grew up with, So I watched three guys beat the shit out of each other to the point where I'm like, nobody would do that to this day. You get very bad results today if you tried to do that.
It's slapstick. I mean, that brand of comedy is just, it's, again, in my core, you see somebody slip and fall and whatever. The first instinct is to laugh and then help them up and see if they're okay.
Right.
It's just, we're conditioned to laugh.
Right.
That's why Funniest Home Videos has been on for so long, right?
Amen.
But then you wonder if they're okay.
I hope they're all right.
Yeah, Grandma went out at the wedding, but it's funny as hell, but did she break a hip? Right?
Oh, my God.
Baseball bat to the crotch is always going to be funny. It just is.
Yeah.
Hey, dude, something as simple. This is just dumb. Something as simple, and it's a slow laugh with me. Like when I was watching a lot of these again, seeing them, the whole city run the barrels when the beer barrels chased all of them.
Oh, yeah.
It's so dumb. Like, it's literally so dumb, but it's a slow laugh with me. Then it built to a giggle, and then you got to catch everybody in the background and somebody standing there and somebody gets wiped out. And I'm sure that was unexpected because that wasn't a Stooge. It's somebody else. And I'm like, oh my God, just stuff like that where I love the brilliance of, okay, in this one, we're going to, we'll just take beer barrels from a company and we're going to do this. We're going to build all this around that and stuff. I can't imagine the process, and I think your documentary too had that with one of the scripts, if you will, of what they did. And there's not a lot of, it was like, well, and the fellows will do what they do best,
Yeah.
So
They gave them leeway.
yeah, here's the setup, and then they're just going to do what they do best. So, whereas your Laurel and Hardy's or what you said, the Marx Brothers and stuff like that,
they're just over.
Yeah,
They're just everywhere.
yeah.
That film has a particular significance, a meaning to me anyway, because that was the very first one that I saw in a movie theater. It was at the State Wayne in the 1970s.
Hey, shout out to the State Wayne.
My folks dropped me off, and it was a triple bill of Return to Oz and the something else, and then that Stooges short, Beer Barrel Polecats. That theater was packed to the rafters, and I have never heard so many people laugh so long or so hard or so loud in my life. I stayed through a second run of the feature just to see it again. I go,
Absolutely.
You pick me up later. I want to watch it one more time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like Jim just said, is like you can't, like, there's a bunch of people who say, hey, do you like the Three Stooges? They're all right. But you get them in that packed theater with 300 other fans, and it is a different experience. It's an enjoyable, funny experience to get people to laugh.
I defy you to not laugh.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Surrounded by that much, it'll make anybody laugh. It's just, they're designed for the movie theater experience.
Yeah.
They are.
Those Redford Theater showings, they'll show you like, oh, that one's funny, but it's not as funny. But when you're watching it, it's hilarious.
Yeah. Well, because you've seen them a billion times,
I'm sorry. I have to correct something. It was Three Little Beers, not Beer Barrel Polecat. Three Little Beers.
Yeah. Okay.
Rolling down. Sorry, I have to correct these things. I'm a historian. It's important to get it right.
Let's get it right.
That one.
Let's get it right.
Oh, my God.
Because there are people who are watching this now screaming at me, you idiot.
Maybe we can edit that out. I don't know. We'll see.
Oh no, it stays in. It all stays in.
We'll
We got you on there.
We corrected ourselves. It's okay. It's fine.
Look you in the eyes.
Well, we got about 10 minutes left or so. We don't want to keep you all day. We'd love to talk a whole bunch more, but we'll just finish up with a few more questions. You mentioned earlier about some memorabilia. We'd be really curious to know if you've ever come across anything pretty cool.
This is where we come back to the Columbo.
Okay, all right.
Reference. It's I've literally traveled all over the world in search of these lost artifacts, this bits, and I have dug through basements and attics and movie theaters and archives and all these different places on this quest to find. And over the years, I've been really fortunate to track down things like the scrapbook that, Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle kept for the last few years of his life.
Wow.
I found original Three Stooges scripts. I found one sheets from some of their earlier short subjects, like You Nasty Spy, lobby cards from the very first Laurel and Hardy film.
Oh my God!
Wow. The coolest thing that I ever found, besides the Chaplin film, which I rate rather highly.
We'll give it to you.
And this is not public knowledge, but there was a guy in Owasso who had a film museum that he brought here from Hollywood. He was born in Owasso, developed the museum out in Hollywood during the 60s and 70s, moved back here to take care of his mom, and built a museum in a church. And he passed away about 6-7 years ago, and they had a big sale, and we went in, and they were just pricing stuff to go. They didn't know. It was the townspeople who took control of the sale of the stuff.
Okay.
They didn't know what everything was, just put really inexpensive price tags on it and stuff. And I went and I said, stop, guys. Some of this stuff is really valuable. I mean, like extraordinarily ridiculous. So we opened up a box, and I pulled it out, and it was a black suit. Open it up, inside the label, it's a suit from Warner Brothers from the costume from the Maltese Falcon.
Oh.
I'm drawing a blank on the guy who played the evil guy, not Peter Lorre, Sidney Greenstreet's costume. It was Sidney Greenstreet's full suit from the Maltese Falcon, folded up in a box. And I said to them, I'm like, do you know what this is worth? I'm like, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars. They shut everything down and said, we need your help to go through some of this stuff. And we did. And I actually took possession of that Sidney Greenstreet costume. It's in storage right now. It's being restored, cleared. It'll go into an archive.
Nice.
Now, in the years that I collected all this stuff, I started when I was 10, 11 years old with stills. I went to the book bin at Ford and Telegraph next to the Ford Tel Theater. And I used to buy movie stills with my lawn mowing money. I rode my bike up there and brought that stuff home. But then I started collecting comic books and records, and then I really got into the super big memorabilia kind of stuff. But the idea was to build a museum that was dedicated to film comedy. But then the internet came along and made it kind of unnecessary. So ultimately, I wound up donating a bunch of stuff to different film archives. I sold stuff to like the world's biggest collectors of particular stuff that they needed for their collections. Wow. So wow. I really don't have much anymore, save for a few decoration things here and there, and I just make sure that all the stuff goes into archives now.
Right. That's awesome.
That's great.
That is great. It's too bad too, because you never know how many other places like that are out there. Who's got what in their basement? Who's got what hidden in an attic? Or somebody's granddaughter's granddaughter from this day and age. Holy cow!
When you watch
and that's the tricky part. In that all of those people are passing away now.
Yeah,
those your generation folks. So their kids are now in their 70s, 80s, 90s. And it's their grandkids who are left, and they don't know a lot of the history behind this stuff. And I've seen a lot of things thrown away and lost forever, stuff that was super valuable and historical because people simply didn't know what it was worth. And I think education is 90% of finding these things. The more you know, the more of the history that you understand. When you're out there, you'll find something and recognize it that other people wouldn't necessarily know what it is. So literally, it's a quest for knowledge as much as it is finding the actual pieces that are still floating around out there. But it does turn up pretty regularly. We find stuff all the time.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's awesome.
I guess last question before we wrap it up. Are there any current? What kind of current shows or movies do you get into? Are there anything that liked your fancy?
There's a lot. I mean, I'm not one of those people who's just completely locked into just the past. I love new movies and new television shows. Succession, easily one of my all-time favorite programs now. It was utterly brilliant. And cooking shows and all. I'm trying to think. What's kind of lost on me are the Marvel superhero movies. So I think the last one that I really sat down was the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man film.
Oh my God.
And I know, I'm sorry, I apologize, but it's not my genre, and they're all so similar. I go for more of the big character type stuff. And what I found kind of sad is there's not a lot of really wild slapstick comedy stuff. It comes out once in a while, and not to say that there aren't some great comedies, but it's just that genre that I love so much is kind of a lost art.
Yeah.
And,
I'm going to interject really quick. So there's two things. There's one that I haven't seen and I will never see, and that was the modern.
That the Farrelly brothers.
The Farrelly brothers did a
film.
Yeah. So I don't even want to bring myself to say the title, even though it's a simple title.
We got like 3 minutes.
Okay. I'm not going to see that. But there was a TNT or AMC Mel Gibson produced TV movie that was actually not that bad. I didn't mind it too much.
Okay. All right. I'll differ with you here, and let me explain why very quickly.
Okay.
I hated the made-for-TV movie because there was a lot of drama in it that wasn't necessarily true. I get it. I understand it. It was just not my favorite thing. And I went in to see the Farrelly Brothers movie fully expecting to hate it. I'm like, no, not going to happen. No one can.
Right.
I will confess to you that about 15 minutes in, I laughed, and I laughed pretty hard. There were a couple of gags in there. I was out of breath. I hate to admit it, but it was actually pretty damn funny. It's not the Three Stooges, but in the vein of the Three Stooges. If you can adjust your mindset, you go, like it's the sons of the Three Stooges. If you need to do that kind of mindset, there are some darn fine gags in there. Chris Diamop, however you say his name, did a killer mo. And Will Sasso was fine as good. There was one gag in there that I swore that if the Stooges were alive, they'd have done it.
Nice.
They would have done it themselves.
Oh my God! Am I actually
that as a historian?
Paul's opinion?
I think
Holy cow!
I know. I hate to admit it, but it's it's true. It's oddly funny, and I think it's because the Farrelly brothers really love the Stooges, and it's a genuine homage. It's not a crass, like you would expect it to just be, hey, let's make a few bucks by doing this. There was a lot of love put into that. They really thought the gags through, and it's pretty amusing.
Awesome.
Well, so we would want to thank you very much, Paul, for having an interview
Thanks
today. This has been a treat.
This was great. Anytime.
Well, we'll see next time you have something you want to promote or bring up, feel free to contact us anytime.
Yeah, we love it. Maybe we'll have you.
You know how to find me on Facebook.
Maybe once we get the new project and we get that thoroughly immersed and stuff, maybe in the future we'll have you back to talk about that one and stuff. We hit some bullet points.
We've got a lot more coming out, so please,
Awesome.
by all
Thank you so much. I can't tell you how much we appreciate this. You coming on here and talking about this.
And once again, it's your
My pleasure. Fun to talk to
Yeah.
hometown guys.
the Michigan guys. Just to promote, to mention your Blu-ray one more time before we leave, the Three Stooges collection, right? Stoogerama, The Men Behind the Mayhem, and Even More Mayhem, July 10th. Find your local retailer or online, offline, or wherever.
At your local store now.
But you said Amazon is hitting it up right now, though, right?
Pre-order.
Yeah. If you pre-order, if there's enough time, jump
Awesome.
on it because they're
Great.
pretty inexpensive.
Thanks a lot, Paul.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
we
you
appreciate it so much.
Take care, all right?
All right.
All righty.
All right.
It's a pleasure, seriously.
Yeah, we should wrap it up. So, well, that's usually your cue.
That's it. Find the Fandom Outpost. We do a lot on Facebook, and our podcast is at least a couple times a month. And listen to us on Spotify, wherever you hear your podcasts.
Great.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.